In honor of 30 years of The Lion King, we return to the Pride Lands with Mufasa the Lion King, a prequel story about how Mufasa becomes king, how Scar and Mufasa become brothers, and we're going to talk about all that right now. Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. I'm your host Tim. I talk all things Disney, which includes Disney Studios. If you enjoy talking all things Disney like I do, consider hitting that subscribe button. I'm going to talk about the good, the average, and the bad of Mufasa, give you my overall thoughts and rating. By the way, there will be spoilers during this review, so if you want to, of course, remain spoiler-free for the movie, suggest checking it out in theaters and then coming right back to this review. Without further ado, let's dive on in.
Ooh, that's good.
First things first that I want to start out with is, of course, the visuals and the CG. While this is billed as a live-action movie, it is, of course, entirely CG. Now, I am unsure as of the recording of this video if there is a live-action shot or two that was actually filmed in a location similar to the live-action Lion King, but the visuals here look absolutely fantastic. They look really great. The characters look solid. And one thing I do love that they updated from the live action version of The Lion King that came out in 2019 is there's more facial expressions with these characters. That was probably one of the biggest complaints a lot of people, myself included, had with the live action version is they were talking, but there wasn't any expressions or emotions. I mean, obviously, yes, you are basing this off real life lions, but this is a fairy tale story, so adding some emotions helps us, the audience, to connect a little bit more with these characters. So I thought that was done very nicely, and again, the CGI was done quite well. I don't really have any issues or problems with it. I thought it looked really great. Next up is the characters, and I want to specifically talk about Mufasa and Taka/Scar. Our two leading voice actors here were Aaron Pierre and Kelvin Harrison Jr. Both did, I think, phenomenal jobs portraying the younger versions of these characters. I mean, it definitely was a surprise, and for me, when listening to Aaron Pierre specifically, I was surprised by how well he did as Mufasa. Stepping into the shoes of James Earl Jones is a tall task, and it can be very difficult, but I thought Pierre did a really solid job capturing just the boldness, the maturity of Mufasa, and also I thought he just did a really solid job. But I really have to give the standout here to Kelvin Harrison Jr. He starts off with Taka/Scar in a very interesting way that made me think through the twist gonna happen, because we know obviously Scar is the villain of The Lion King, but where is that twist coming? And the way he did it with his voice, I thought was phenomenal. I thought he did a really great job just adding a slight little gruff in his voice the second kind of Scar took over, and I thought it just was phenomenal. In my personal opinion, he is the definitive live-action version of Scar. Nothing against Chitwell Ifor at all, but I thought he did okay in the live-action remake. Obviously, nothing compared to Jeremy Irons here, but again, I thought Kelvin Harrison Jr. did a really solid job capturing this character. I also want to hone on John Kani, who of course did Rafiki both in the live-action version of The Lion King as well as this film. I thought he did a really great job. I mean, Rafiki's always one of those fun characters that provides the humor and wisdom, and he does that once again in this film. I thought he really captured a lot of great emotional moments in this film and really helped to center Mufasa in his journey to becoming king. And I thought he just did a really great job. Plus, he did fantastic telling the story. I also do want to give a quick shout out to, of course, Timon and Pumbaa, played by, of course, Billy Eichner, Seth Rogen. It's great to see these guys again. And of course, Timon and Pumbaa, two of the best Disney animated characters of all time, my personal opinion. But seriously, I mean, they're fantastic. And I thought they did a really solid job adding a little bit of humor in there. And I think they may have added a couple fourth wall breaks, if I'm being honest, which I do appreciate. I also do want to give a quick shout out to Beyonce's daughter, Blue Ivy. I believe that's her name. Blue Ivy. Yes. And I do want to give her a quick shout out because I thought she did a really solid job as Kiara. Lastly, I want to talk about the story. One thing I appreciate with this compared to, of course, the live action version of The Lion King is that this is a brand new story. Now, obviously, they do deviate from some of the books and some of the precedents that's been set with this story in particular, but I thought overall it was really solid. It's a quite enjoyable story. The pacing in it is also done quite nicely. There's nothing I feel like is super duper like rushed. They may take maybe too many breaks for my liking to kind of go back to present day, but I think the story still progressed nicely. It was really solid. It's a story that I know for me I've wanted to see for a little bit. How did Mufasa become king? How did Scar become the villain we know and love? And we get to see that in this movie. I thought they did a really solid job. There's a few things I would do a little bit differently, and I'll talk about that a little later on in the review, but overall I thought the story was nicely done.
Something good, something bad, bit of both.
I want to start here by talking about the villain named Kyros. He's played by Mads Mikkelsen, who at this point really should be a Disney legend because he has now hit everything except Pixar and Disney animation, I think. So when's the Disney legend thing coming? In all seriousness though, he did a really solid job portraying this character. My issues with Kyros though is just he's a pretty basic villain. He's not anything I'd say extremely menacing, although he does come across that as a character, but he's pretty basic. It's, you know, it adds a little extra flair, I guess, or a little extra antagonist to the story and helps set up kind of the final confrontation. It's just not a standout villain. And I think part of the reason for that is it's kind of hard to be a standout villain when you have Scar, Taka also in the film, who in my personal opinion is one of the greatest Disney villains of all time. So he just falls a little short. I do want to talk about the songs here as well. I will say this, Lin-Manuel Miranda does know how to lyrically give really solid songs. The problem I have though is The Lion King is known for its music. When you think of Can You Feel the Love Tonight, Hakuna Matata, Circle of Life, He Lives in You, like all of these songs and more make up just these stories, and they're phenomenal songs. Like they are the best of the best when it comes to Disney storytelling via songs. And so that's already a hard challenge to live up to. And I don't necessarily think Lin did a terrible job. I don't think he did the best it could be. In my personal opinion, I think it's a little too poppy for The Lion King. Now, I think it works well in stuff like Moana and Encanto, but I don't think it works here because there's a certain tone established with the Lion King genre. And these songs, while pretty good, don't have the same tone as the rest of them. And they don't necessarily like have a standout song in my personal opinion. They're pretty good. They're not great. They're not awful. Again, they're kind of in this average section, which is why we're talking about it now. I wish they were just a little bit better. I don't really have a specific standout here. And so again, I just think it's a little too pop for The Lion King.
I have a really bad feeling about this.
And these are more just like personal kind of gripes I have. It's just things I wish that were done a little differently. The first thing up is I wish Scar and Mufasa were actual blood brothers rather than the kind of brother relationship that they do have in the film. Now, it's not to say it's executed terribly because I think they do a really great job at capturing the dynamic between these two guys, but for them to not be blood, I don't know, just feels weird. And obviously that was the lore that was set up, is that Mufasa and Scar had the same mother, same father. It's just their father liked Mufasa more, which caused Scar to resent him so much to the point where obviously we see in the film, both versions of The Lion King, what happens in that film with Scar, of course, killing Mufasa.
Long live the king.
while I do appreciate them trying something new and trying something a little different, it's just something I wish was done more akin to the stories that were told. I think it could have built up the resentment a little bit more. Although I will say this, they did do a really good job building his resentment towards Mufasa, with, of course, everybody really liking him and not liking Taka, and him taking away Sarabi. I thought that was a really solid twist. But again, I wish they were blood brothers, and I really wish this was an animated movie. I think this would have been the perfect movie for Disney to bring back 2D animation. I mean, 30 years ago this year, The Lion King came out in theaters and blew everybody's minds. I mean, it's regarded as one of the greatest animated films of all time. I think in honor of that 30 years, and really I think this would have been a great spot for Disney to bring back 2D animation, to make this a 2D film. I think you still keep the same voice cast and all that stuff, but I think this would have been a perfect animated movie. And I think it would have been, in my eyes, much better as an animated film. And I think it would have been also received by a lot of people better as an animated movie. Both of those are just more personal gripes, personal wishes. Yeah, let's wrap this up.
And so our journey comes to an end.
Overall, I actually was pleasantly surprised by the film. I had very low expectations going into this, I'll be honest. I had low expectations. While it didn't deliver, I think, everything I wanted, and I wish some things were done a little bit differently, like Mufasa and Scar being actual brothers. I think the story was solid. I think the voice casting here is much, much better compared to the live action Lion King in 2019, and I think they did a much better job with this one than that version of the film. And I ultimately think like this was a really solid entry. Lion King's one of my favorite movies of all time, and so to step back into the world of the Pride Lands, to be with these characters again, to see a brand new story, something I've wanted for quite some time, was cool to witness. But there are things I wish were done better. I wish the songs were a little less poppy and a little more kind of Lion King-esque. I wish the villain was a little bit better. And so overall, I mean, it was pretty enjoyable. I do have to give this a 7.6 out of 10 with a B-. And the reason I'm giving it probably a little bit higher than maybe some other people will is I think overall this was a pretty, like I said, it's a pretty solid story. And I think they did a solid job capturing that. Again, I do have a few issues, a few things I would have changed. But overall, I am honestly pretty happy we got this story. And if you're a big Lion King fan, I definitely would say check out this film. If you are someone who enjoys Disney live action movies and you enjoyed the live action Lion King, I'd also say check this film out. However, if you are someone who is a Disney fan and you're a little more hesitant, a little unsure on this film, I would say go ahead and wait for it to arrive on Disney+. That being said though, if you've seen the film, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Give me your overall thoughts, and if you have a rating for it, go ahead and join me down there as we talk all things Mufasa, the Lion King. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up. I greatly appreciate it. Let me know what you like, what you don't like. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend time with me. I truly appreciate it. And if you're interested in more reviews just like this one, I actually posted about a month or so ago the official Moana 2 review. I have that available on the channel if you want to check that out. That being said, thank you all so much for watching. See you all in the next one.